Hey guys, we got a 1998 Saturn SW2 with a 1.9 liter 4-cylinder in it. It's got a real long crank before start. Diagnosed it as the crank sensor bad. We're going to do the crank sensor, we're going to do the plugs. We're not going to do wires to save money. And we're going to do an oil change on this. First thing I did is jacked up the car so that I could get underneath there. Then underneath here on the back side of the motor, you'll see, if you can see, behind the starter, you'll see the crank sensor. There it is. A 10mm bolt and a little wiggling and it's out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out of there and put the new one in. Alright, I've got the old part out. Put it side by side to the new part and make sure it's both the same thing. Like I said earlier, it was just a one bolt and the one connector. Take the connector off before you put the socket on the bolt, because otherwise you'll have a hard time. Just put the new one in the same way you took the old one out. Put the bolt in first, and then put the electrical connector on. Put a little bit of oil around the O-ring here, so that way it'll lubricate itself going into the bore. It's really a circus act if you don't take the starter out, but you just kind of feel your way to installation there. I found the little hole, slide it in, give it a little wiggle. Never use the bolt to draw the crank sensor into the bore. That's a good way to destroy the crank sensor. So you're gonna have to make sure it seats all the way in before you go hog wild tightening it up. Once you got it all the way in there, get your bolt, stick it back in, and take your fingers and tighten it up. I did the oil change last in this car, so I know I could take the filter off by hand. It's located on the back side of the engine above the passenger side CV axle. If you can't get it off by hand, you have to use a oil filter wrench. Make sure you have your catch pan ready. Just spin that bad boy off. You see all the nasty oil going in the catch pan. See, it's all going into the catch pan. And then on this particular car, it uses 9/16 oil pan plug. Do a little bit of this twisting action here. And get your new filter. Take a little bit of your old oil. Put it on the ring of the filter here. And then go ahead and jam her back up in there. Hand tight is all you need. You don't need to go any crazier than that. And then go ahead and reinstall the drain plug. I have a good feel for this, so I don't use a torque wrench. And then we go top side and fill it with oil. If you want to, you can spray all this off and clean it up nice and pretty. But for my own personal cars, I don't care too much. I'm going to change the plugs real quick before I set this thing back down. since it's on an angle, I can't fill the oil up properly anyways until it's level. So I'm going to go ahead and do this while it's waist high, so that way it's easy to get to everything. If you're afraid of screwing up the firing order, just do one plug at a time. Usually that's what I'll do anyway, so that way I don't have to remember. It's foolproof. Take one plug out, plug wire off, put your socket and extension down there, and pull the plug. As you can tell, these plugs have just about had it. That's why they're being replaced. Maybe it'll focus here. I think you could even see the stepping on the electrode. It's real bad. I think these are probably original to the car. When you go to install your new plug, usually I'll anti-seize it, but this one I'm not. Put it down in the spark plug well. Don't drop it down in there, because otherwise you run the risk of bending the gap. Always check your gaps before you put a plug in a spark plug well. Got all the plugs installed. Now I'm going to go ahead and let the car back down again. We'll fill up the oil and take it for a test drive. Should have no more long crank. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Alright, oil's all topped off. New plugs, new crank sensor. Let's fire this beast up and see what it'll do. It lights much better. I looked at the scan tool data, and when it first come in, the car had a long crank, and it wouldn't even start to save its life. And looking at scan tool data, and I saw that the crank sensor was stuck at 60 RPM with key on, engine off, and that was a dead giveaway. Once I did finally get it started up, it gave me a check engine light, but that immediately went away apparently. Let's go give it a little whirl down the road and see what everything's like. Missing a mirror, how about that? Alright, let's give it a good run down the road real quick. It's like something's on fire. Not on the car, but outside. Get a little more bang for your buck there. But it seems like the car's running good now. Extended crank is gone. Oh, here comes the fire truck here. So I figured, let's turn around and go figure out what's going on fire. Man, something is really on fire. Look at this. Something is roasting. Looks like that house there went on, catched on fire. Oh yes. Whew. That sucks. Whew. Well, car fixed and the house is on fire. Thanks for watching, you guys, and more to come soon.